Let's go straight across now to our esteemed guest joining us on the broadcast, Ambassador Arun Singh, former ambassador to the United States. Let's just start off by talking about the potential impact on Indian and South Asian students, given especially that the social media procedures as of now also are not very clear.
I think there will certainly be an impact, as you mentioned, the appointments that they've already scheduled. So they're going ahead with that, but they're not giving additional slots. And then the question would arise, even for those who are already scheduled, what will be the additional vetting that would be required? So one clear impact could be that the number of students going to the United States this year, including from India, would come down. Now, that's something that certainly impacts on students who had certain plans. It also impacts on the universities, because large number of universities in the US were raising revenue from the fees given by Indian and other foreign students. According to one recent data, there are more than 1 million foreign students in the United States, and they are contributing almost $50 billion just as tuition fees. And then there's additional expenditure that they incur. So it's a major infusion to the US economy. So there will certainly be a hit at that. Now, as was mentioned by the spokesman of the US State Department, clearly every country does have a sovereign right to determine who they will give visas to. But the manner in which they're doing it this time, it seems that the right of free expression is something that the US is not accepting anymore. And therefore, the kind of United States kind of messaging it brought to the international stage so far, encouraging different viewpoints, encouraging free expression, that is being challenged. So this is a very different personality of the United States that we've seen for the past several decades. So that's something that everybody needs to factor in, including students who may want to go to the US for various studies, for advancing their career.
Right. And the kind of advisory, the latest advisory by the US Embassy that you also mentioned, it also highlights that students who drop out, skip classes or leave their programs without notifying their schools risk losing their visas and being barred from future US visas. What do you make of that step?
I think what I make from that is that the US Embassy is trying to caution Indian students that be careful, because they are also worried that if students go there and their visas are revoked, there will be a blowback in India. And they would certainly, from their perspective, like to reduce that blowback. So they are trying to caution the students that, look, there's a different environment in which you're going there, so you have to be careful. The kind of norms that were there earlier are not there. So once you get an admission, what is required in terms of the visa, attending classes, observing rules, so they need to do that, because as you've seen, and the US Secretary of State himself and others have said publicly that any violation they find of visas, anything they find that from their perspective is not acceptable, they're going to just revoke the visas. Now, that's a challenge, because many students have invested large amount of money to go and study in the US. And if their visas are suddenly revoked for reasons that were not used earlier, it brings a lot of uncertainty into the system. But having said that, I'd say that, look, it's a challenge for the students. It's also a challenge for US universities. It's a challenge for the US system overall. And this is an internal struggle that is going on within the United States. They have to sort it out. But going beyond that, I think for Indian universities, this could also be a moment of opportunity. Because if students are wary about going to the United States at this stage, even under the NEP, the new education policy, the government had authorized foreign universities to set up campuses in India or do partnership with Indian universities. So maybe this is an opportunity for Indian universities to see if they can expand partnerships with US and other universities to enhance capacity in India, so that this compulsion for Indian students to go abroad to study is minimized. So that could be one positive spin-off of this and an opportunity to be seized.
Right. I just want to, before we wrap up, go back to that earlier point about social media vetting procedures. Right now, since you're speaking of uncertainty, there's also uncertainty about how that procedure will be carried out. What do you think this would look like? Because this is going to be, of course, in time to come, something that is going to be closely watched as far as those procedures and those rules are concerned.
No, absolutely, because at one stage, everybody has the right to privacy. And through this kind of vetting, one can argue that their right to privacy is being challenged. But at the same time, the US authorities would say that they need to know in a 360-degree manner about a person before they grant him a visa. So there is a conflict between two norms. And the social media companies would also come under challenge because many of them project that the platforms they provide, there's confidentiality, that messages there are not retained beyond a certain length of time. Now, the question would arise whether there is a backdoor through which US authorities are able to get access to social media activity beyond what the media companies have been accepting so far. So these are the issues that would come up in the coming period.
Ambassador Arun Singh, a pleasure as always to have you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.